Welcome, all you creatures of the night. This evening, the term creature takes on a new meaning. Hidden beneath the surface, far from society and forethought, lurks our deepest, most fears. In the shadow lies the beast, slumbering, stalking, and preying on its victims. It subtly prowls, purrs, and gains on you. Is there a beast after you, waiting to pounce and make you supper? Or is the paranoia all in your head? A delusion of your own repressed thoughts. You cry out for help, but perhaps a cat has got your tongue. This is the latest episode in It Records. I'm one of your hosts, as always, Matt Johnson, joined by
Peter Hansen.
Peter Hansen, as always. Good to see you, Pete. Good to see you. Good to talk to you again. And this week, everybody, we will be taking on and tackling the 1942 film from RKO, Cat People. Directed by Jacques Tourneur, and produced by Val Lewton with RKO Studios.
Across the centuries comes this exciting story of a modern girl cursed by an ancient legend. The legend of the cat. Women whose kiss means death, whose love turns them into vicious, snarling beasts of prey.
I've been followed by something that was not human, something that attempted to take my life. I believe that was the cat form of Verena.
Why should she wish to harm you?
Because I'm in love with her husband. It's shut, Val. Just a minute ago, it was open.
It's locked. Leave us, Verena.
And for those of you who listen to the podcast regularly, I did a blog post on this earlier and talked about Val Lewton in my mini episode, so I have plenty to say, but I'll keep it to a minimum and let Pete get his thoughts in. And with that being said, Pete, can you give us a creepy headline for today?
Meow. Yes, I can.
Oh, I hope you had that one holstered for a while.
I thought of it when you were doing the intro, if I'm being honest. So, this little creepy headline is a little different, a little more historical for all you history buffs out there. But this movie came out December 25th, 1942. I thought that was kind of I thought that was kind of strange for a horror movie back then. You know, I thought that was more of a trend in the 80s or 70s, you know, where they wanted to be a little more,
yeah,
I don't know, just weird with it. But I was kind of shocked by that, and some shit happened in the 40s. I hope everyone knows that.
Oh, yeah, I think I'm familiar.
With World War II? I don't know.
Oh, that's right, yeah, that big thing.
So, the day before, Francois Darlin, I don't know. He's French. He's an admiral of the fleet for the French Navy, and he was assassinated on Christmas Eve. His killer was caught Christmas Day and executed the day after, Boxing Day, as I think it is, or Kwanzaa. You know, pick your favorite. But the strangest thing is that Francois was a Nazi, sympathizer with the Vichy regime, I believe it's pronounced. I'm probably wrong. Vichy, with the V.
With the V? How do you spell Vichy? V-I?
V-I-C-H-Y.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
So, I'm saying it with a Midwest accent, so, I could be pronouncing it very wrong. But, he wasn't well liked by the Allies, so, when so I was like, But the funny thing is that, the comments about his passing was, no tears were shed by the British. So, so far so good. And Harold Macmillan, who was Churchill's advisor to Eisenhower at the time of the assassination, described Darlan's service and death by saying, "Once bought." He said, "Bought."
Gee.
Darlan's murder. There's been no connection with the British or American involvement with this assassination, but
Okay, yeah.
I feel like there was.
I'd almost say I'd guarantee there was. There had to have been.
Because they're like, here, have North Africa. 2 months later, he was assassinated.
Yep. Yeah, we ain't gonna let this happen, guys. No way.
Yeah, Nazi sympathizer.
We're taking you out on Christmas.
So that is
That concludes
my
the creepy.
my historical headline, maybe.
A blast from the past, if you will. Well, I appreciate it,
Yeah.
Pete. As always, riveting headline news from you. But back to cat people, back to the fantastic cat people. For those of you who haven't seen it, I'm sure there's plenty that haven't. Came out in 1942. The basic plot of it is an American man named Oliver marries a Serbian immigrant. Irana, is that her name? Irana? Or
Irina.
Irina. Okay. So the American man Oliver marries a Serbian immigrant who fears that she will turn into a cat person of her homeland fables if they are intimate together. So basically, if she becomes intimate with her husband, she fears that she will turn into a cat person and kill, and she can't control it. Almost a Wolfman, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type scenario, if you will. If you can grasp the concept. The film was based off of Val Lewton, who produced it. His book, I believe it's the. Do you have the Baguette? I believe is what it was called. It's based off his short story, The Cat People.
I knew it was based off his short story, but I couldn't remember the name of it.
I believe that's the name of it. But with the plot being said, I'll go into why I chose it, horror significance, read about it in my blog in depth, but it was during the 40s. These came out when Val Lewton took over RKO Studios, 42 to 46, and created a whole spiel of B-horror movies that they wanted him to roll out, and he couldn't spend more than $135,000 on the budget. And Cat People was the first one that he came out with, and it was a major critical success as well as a domestic box office success. But I think it's because with the low budget, it was able to champion a very stylized form and technique of horror, which skyrocketed into film noir during that time period. A lot of different film noir techniques, especially in the story as well, and it was suggestive horror. Used a lot of Freudian implications, which I can get into later, but suggestive horror compared to Universal at the time, who was doing big monsters, big scares. This film's much more subtle. I think that's why it has a significant place still in horror. That's my spiel, Pete.
It's a good spiel. Good spiel.
Okay. So, Pete, with that, I've seen it several times, if you can tell, but this is your first viewing of Cat People. You don't have to tell me if you're going to defend or destroy it, but initial impression, was it what you thought it was going in?
I kind of figured it would be. I didn't know anything about it, to be honest. I just knew it was like a well-regarded horror film from the 40s, and I was like, I should take the time because I haven't seen a whole lot of horror from this time period. It's like, besides like Wolfman and Dracula, it's really about the extent I think I've seen. Maybe a couple I'm missing, but not a whole lot, to cut the story short. And so I wanted to see the significance of it, see, why you talked about it in that one mini episode. I was definitely interested. And right away, I could tell that it was I thought it almost was a noir film, like, watching it. Because, I could tell it was a 40s horror because of how subtle it was. Because it was also weird seeing, because you brought up Universal, like, how different those horror movies were. Because they were just, like,
Sure.
about monsters just like
The Mummy.
right away. Yeah, just right in your
Frankenstein.
face.
Yeah. With that, now that you've seen this one, as I said, it's more suggestive. It plays on shadow, it plays on lighting, and sort of the viewer conjuring up sort of what's happening off screen. It uses a great job of kind of conjuring up what you think is off screen. Do you think, I guess, do you prefer this type of movie or like Universal's Dracula, the Frankensteins, Wolfman? Which one is better? Does this deserve the critical success it does, or is the other monsters better?
It's a tough question because
that's a long question. I'll cut it back. Basically, which one do you prefer? First of all, the sort of subtle off-screen generation or monster universe?
well, it kind of goes back and forth. Like I think there's like definitely room for suggestive horror anywhere. I think this one works better than some Universal movies, but not all of them. Like, I think, example, The Wolfman is one of my favorite ones of that time period, where I wouldn't say Cat People's better than it, but I still think there's, like, validity and, like, value to, like, Cat People, because I'm not a fan of Dracula, as I said in the mini episode.
I remember. I still remember, Pete.
So I like Cat People more than that.
Okay. And you brought up Wolfman. I think we're all familiar with that. I got a question then. There's a slight difference. Cat People, she believes she's going to turn into like a panther. She's intimate and kill people. With Wolfman, it's into a wolf. But the difference is in Wolfman, you see the transformation, and it's a man that's also a wolf. He's standing up. You don't really see that in this movie. You never really see her turn into a panther or see the panther. I guess what I'm saying is...
You don't see her as a panther. You see a panther.
You see a panther, yeah. So I guess just what's your general feelings towards... I mean, it's kind of a similar principle. What one works better in the stylized for horror? I mean, is the suggestive idea that you don't see the transformation, unfulfilling compared to seeing... what you gotta witness in Wolfman?
I think they worked with what they had is what it boils down to.
In Cat People?
Yeah, is that they had to make it more suggestive because of how much of a lower budget they had, and then that, I could respect that they worked with their resources, because like they're like, oh, we can't do a cool transformation scene like in Wolfman because
we don't get the money.
Yeah, we don't get the money.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. I was doing some research, and I knew, they had a low budget, so they were trying to keep it within limits. But Lewton and Tourniar, hopefully I'm pronouncing his name right, the director, he's French as well, Jacques Tourniar, they didn't want to show a real panther as much as they could, because they wanted it to be like suggestive. But the studio made them in those final scenes where you see the panther twice, like an actual panther, when he's fighting the psychiatrist. Remember that? They made them put it in there and wanted to show a transformation to be on par with the Universal pictures. And I'm guessing with Wolfman in particular. So the studio then pushed for an actual panther, but Lewton didn't want it in there.
Lewton was against it.
Lewton was not for it. Not for a real panther.
I'm surprised that he was able to fight back the studios then, because they had a lot more power back then than they do now. Like, if you didn't want to do something, you were gone. Just replace you with someone else.
Especially since he just took over, and it was his first film, and he had that much say at all.
Pretty bold.
Yeah. So, Pete, with his film, I mentioned sort of lighting and shadow being a huge element. It rocketed film noir. It relied more on compositional horror compared to physical action, like we said with monsters. Did you witness anything that sort of enhanced the film, or you saw something that was foreshadowed with the scene development or the lighting with the picture? Or was it just kind of really dark and light in places?
Well, See, I did notice, like, I did really like the emphasis on shadows. I thought it was like what made the film really interesting, but I didn't really pick out like any like if they were inferring anything. But it did play off like a romance movie a lot to me.
Yeah.
Where with between like the two leads, like, you know, they fall in love very quickly, but then they're like, and then they almost become like jealous of each other very quickly, and I was just like, what is this movie doing right now?
Yeah.
Like, I was very thrown off by that, and didn't suspect it. Where like the main female lead, Simone Simon Simone, I believe her
Simon
name.
Simone.
She becomes very jealous of her husband's friend from work, who's
Alice.
a female. Yeah, very quickly.
Yeah. She becomes very, right away, actually. I think, was it because he, like, told her about, he told Alice about Iriana or whatever, about her life, and she was, from that point on, jealous of Alice, because she knew anything about her.
I mean, maybe that was taboo in 1940s, but...
That's true. It's a different time. It's a different time than now.
Like, now, you'd just be like, you know, he's just chatting with his buddy, you know, what's the problem?
He's just chatting with his coworker and his buddy. There's no big deal. Pete, but you mentioned...
But then they're just like... Sorry, I was just going to make a stupid point.
No, go on, please, Pete.
But, like, her worries weren't, you know, they're kind of warranted at the same time.
That's true. Like, at first you feel like you want to sympathize not with Iriana, but with the other two, by the way she's acting. But, I mean, they're kind of warranted because they do end up being friends, but then they're like, I feel like 3/4 in the film, they're like, but we should get married, right? Like, we should get married? So I got to divorce Iriana.
How long have you been married? Like, where's the time frame in this movie?
Yeah. Has it been years? Was it like a month? Or how long was it? We don't know.
They were married for a month. I remember her saying it to the
guy
little,
at the zoo.
The little groundskeeper guy who likes to forget his keys.
Mm-hmm. That's right, and he likes to whistle his tunes. He was singing that one song.
Who wants to steal a key? It's a panther. He's not going to do anything. That's basically what he said.
Wisecracking zookeeper.
From Brooklyn, I want to say.
Speaking of wisecracking, there were some great cat puns. Not cat puns, but just cat lines that were in this movie that were like just hitting you over the head with it. What'd you say? I feel like a cat just walked over my grave. Okay. Too much. It was the 40s, though. It was the 40s. And that might have been a real phrase people still used.
It was a... it was a term.
Peter, just real quick, I want to launch back into something you said a while back that it came in my head. But you were talking about at the beginning they looked like they were in a relationship together. They meet in the first scene, our main characters, and they go back to her apartment. And then you thought they were kind of together, but then there's this dissonance right away of like, you feel like they're not really into each other all of a sudden, and like she's starting to get jealous. One of the things I thought that was like, with the shadow and lighting again, that really just makes your brain think that everything should be fine is when they meet up and they go to her apartment and everything, it's light and chirpy, and then it goes to night and you see them like in her dark of her apartment, and the guy's like smoking a cigarette, but they're like they're arguing. Normally at those times in those film noir movies, that was meant to suggest, because you couldn't show kissing or sex at all, that something romantic had happened, that sort of lighting and shot. So we're supposed to, you feel like that's what is happening, but they're really arguing about not being intimate whatsoever, and she has yet to kiss him.
Oh.
Yeah.
See, I didn't pick up that they weren't intimate for a while, because I don't know where I was mentally, but it took me a while to like figure that out. And he's just mad because, you know, he can't have sex with his wife. You know, he's kind of pissed off.
Yeah, that was that was a big thing for him, a big driver. He can't have sex with his wife, hasn't kissed him. So he's got to divorce her, basically, and marry his coworker, Alice.
Who's just down to kiss? Down to kiss him, I guess.
Down to kiss whenever, wherever.
Oh, God.
And Pete, one thing that I learned from this film, because I've been talking about technique, is the Lewton bus. Which, are you familiar with that? That film technique?
I wasn't familiar with the term until looking up the Wikipedia page after watching the movie, because I feel like when I was watching this movie, the scene caught my eye because it was like it was building up suspense, and I was like, okay, I like where this is going. It's building up suspense in the movie, and then it kind of like all that goes away when like a false scare, I guess is another way of putting it.
Yeah.
When the bus comes, and I was like, oh wow, like is this like the first jump scare ever in a movie?
Yeah. Basically, yeah, that's what it boils down to, is that was like the first instance of using a kind of jump scare, building tension to a jump scare. Is a Lewton bus from Cat People.
Which it's pretty cool that when I was looking up on it, I was like, oh wow, this is actually like a significant thing in like horror films.
Yeah, definitely. And I didn't even really catch it until, I've seen this before, going more into research this time, that about the Lewton bus and the jump scare. And well, I mentioned earlier that this was a critical success, and it still is. It's on the 1001 the list of 1001 movies you should see before you die. All the critics will love it, but it went well box office. Pete, do you have that number by chance? What they did?
Was it 4 million?
I think it was 4 million. Yeah, is what I saw, with a budget of 134,000. He couldn't go over 135. They shot Cat People at $134,000.
$1,000 shy.
Which equates to today like $2 million. 135,000 is about $2 million a day, and then it grossed $4 million, which would be roughly $120 million.
Oh wow!
So yeah, it'd be pretty significant, especially for a horror film, I feel like, today.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Would be a financial success for sure.
Absolutely. And then spawning from that financial success, it had a sequel. It went on to have The Curse of the Cat People, which, Pete, you you love Cat People so much, was, I think, you're verbatim what you said. You went on to watch Curse of the Cat People today, which came out like a year later or so?
It came out 2 years later.
Was it 2 years later? Okay.
Yeah. So I actually recorded these two movies off of TCM because they had like a big thing this month. And I was like, well, if I'm going to watch one, I want to watch the other. They're both very short films. And, I was like, kind of wanted to watch New York type films, trying to watch more of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually liked the sequel more, but even though it's still considered a horror film, it doesn't feel like one at all. Like, there's parts that are creepy, but I don't know, there's just something about it that feels more of a noir film. But the same cast is in it. And
really?
Val Lewton's involved.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember the first director's name, but the second director who came in, because he was going over budget and over the amount of days it took, Robert Wise took over. And I don't know if that rings any bells, but he did a couple significant films in his day.
Horror films in general, or just films?
Films. He did Sound of Music, West Side Story, the first Star Trek.
I haven't heard of any of those.
And The Day the Earth Stood Still, which I guess could be, even though that's science fiction, the most horror-like movie.
Okay. Oh, so that's pretty good. And he came in second for Curse of the Cat People, you said. Right?
Oh, and he also did The Haunting, which is a horror film. Sorry, I forgot that one.
The original 63 or something like that?
Yeah, The Haunting, yeah.
Is it 63? Do you have it up?
I believe it is 63.
Oh, man. I'm not proud that I know that, but...
It is 63,
that was
yep.
in the back of my head for some reason. Okay. Well, that's a nice piece of trivia, Pete. Do you have any more for cat people that you found that would, entice the viewers, give them a new perspective on the film?
Well, do you want me to talk about the second one, or do you want me to talk about the first one for a second?
Cat people, the first one, if you got it in front of you. Or if not, Curse of the Cat People works just fine. It's a sequel.
So this film did so well in the box office, as we said, that it delayed the next two Lewton films, I Walked with a Zombie and Leopard Man, because they both were supposed to come out in 43. I believe they did, but they pushed it back because Cat People was in theaters for so long, because it was making so much money.
That's interesting. Yeah, I heard something, because it was in theaters so long, critics who originally bashed the film, who saw it originally when it came out, it stayed in so long that they wouldn't resaw it and wrote positive reviews for it, which
I saw that.
bolster the reception of the movie.
Yeah, which is it's pretty funny to think about, that they're just like, hey, you know what, I'll go see this again. Another thing I saw that I liked was to keep the budget down, that they reused sets from Orson Welles' Magnificent Ambersons.
Okay.
So they reused sets from that movie to keep the budget down to $134,000, as we said. So one scene that I wanted to bring up before we kind of close this out was probably one of the final scenes and the most horror segment, I guess. Well, the swimming pool, I guess, would be the other one, which we haven't mentioned either. But the one that I want to talk about was the psychiatrist was really drawn to the female arena, and where I was like, wait, have they been seeing each other? I was very confused by that. Because she seemed almost receptive of it, and then he kissed her, and then primed her to change into a panther and kill him. Yep. And then he had a little hidden blade in his cane, and I was like, what?
Yeah. He just has a sword in his blade, in his cane. He's been dragging around. Mm-hmm.
But I definitely enjoyed that scene a lot, and God, I'm trying to think of what we could bring up for a clip too. I would definitely like to throw in a clip in there. But I don't know if there's any things that would be worth audio-wise. We could figure it out. But the other one was this swimming pool scene, which we haven't talked about either.
True. Yeah,
but that one was very suggestive horror.
Mm-hmm.
That one really falls in the realm of that because it was very shadow-like, and you could barely see the panther. And I think they actually used the real panther in the scene, but they made it so dark that you couldn't even see it. You could barely make it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so too. You could just barely make out the figure, but you knew that it was some feline character encroaching on Alice in the pool in the basement of her apartment, right? Wasn't it in the basement of her apartment?
Yeah,
she was
it was the basement
there.
of her apartment. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're led to believe it's Irene who follows her there, Irina, and then turns into the panther. No, that's very suggestive. But usually in horror too, I think I said the pool area or a tub is mostly a sanctuary type place as a tenant, and they play with that.
Oh, okay.
It's if you're in it, you're fine, but it's usually danger looms on the outside. It Follows has that scene where she's just kind of floating in the pool.
Oh yeah.
And comes, and there's the iconic visual image of Nightmare on Elm Street, where she's laying in the bathtub. Water, water, water.
I guess we could play that scene right now.
Yeah.
The swimming pool.
I think that's apropos.
the key for the swimming pool?
Of course, dearie.
Oh, what a darling kitten.
Yeah, it's one of 4. Tabby had him about a month ago. Don't forget to turn the lights out when you're through, will you?
I won't forget.
Hello? Yeah. Just a moment, dearie. Yes?
Is Miss Moore in?
She just went downstairs to the swimming pool.
Would it be all right if I went down to see her?
Of course, dearie. Right down them steps there. Oh, gee, I can't tonight.
All right. I just put that in a little audio guys for you guys. You're welcome.
Check it out. It's pretty cool visually, too. I forgot to mention, we talked about the sequel, but there is a remake of Cat People. A remake was made. I haven't seen it. But it was like in the 80s. Like mid-80s, called Cat People.
It's supposed to be more erotic, too. Like to describe it as an erotic horror film.
Mm-hmm.
So, I wonder where that will go.
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing. Like, I kind of got those tendencies in Cat People in 42. It's not going to be too crazy in 42, but everything I did read about the new remake was like erotic horror, cat people, and all these like sexual images. And I was like, okay, I gotta check this out now. Gotta check out this new Cat People.
So I guess the ultimate question is defend or destroy.
I think mine's pretty obvious. I'm gonna defend it. I really like this movie. I'm a big fan of Val Lewton's. As I said in a previous mini episode, I think what he did here in the 40s with a low budget, style-wise, really was advanced the horror genre in a different direction than the Universal monster pictures at the time, more suggestive, simpler horror, using the camera for everything. And I thought it made the viewer conjure up fears in their own mind instead of just blatantly throwing monsters at them. So I enjoy it. I enjoy this little stretch of Val Lewton's 4 or 5 year career at RKO making B-horror movies. So I defend it adamantly. But Pete, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are.
Why I completely agree with what you're saying, and I actually enjoy Curse of Cat People more than this movie. Mm-hmm. I am still gonna say destroy this movie. If I'm gonna pick one to destroy what we've done, is that I don't know, like I do like this movie. There's just something, I don't know, it just didn't do it for me. I think it's maybe the older movie. Even though I enjoy older movies, I think it was just too slow. And like it's hard for me not to hold it against it because I was trying to be open about it because it is older and there's a lot of cool shadows and suggestive themes with it. But I don't know, for the time that I watched it and my initial feelings, they could change. But with that being said, it is just going to be the first movie that I destroy. And
yeah, I was going to say.
And I apologize, Matt.
No, that's fine.
I am definitely a huge defender of horror, but if I was going to choose one, I think I'd rather do it now than later, because I wouldn't want to be the guy that wouldn't destroy a horror movie.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, to each his own. To each his own, but I will remember this.
You son of a bitch.
You son of a bitch. No, I understand. I get it's not for everybody. I really do. I think it's critical yuppies eat it up and want to advance it and make sure it lives for years to come. But it can definitely, even for the hour and 13 minutes that it is, it could drag on for people. I could definitely see that. I could definitely see it being stretched a little too far.
It doesn't drag as much as Dracula, I would say.
Fair enough. You've destroyed 2 of my movies that I like.
Yeah, but we haven't talked about Dracula yet.
That's true. We just touched the surface of it. I'm sure we'll hit it on this podcast later. If you're up for it. If you
Especially
hates it.
Especially the Bram Stoker by Francis Ford Coppola. Oh my god.
Yeah, with Gary Oldman, yeah.
Keanu Reeves.
Masterpiece.
He's doing a fine job.
Okay, well, listeners, I think that concludes our episode of It Records today on Cat People. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got a lot out of it. I still defend it. Check it out on Amazon. Or listen to my blog. Listen to it. You can read it. Read my blog. It's about this movie and Val Lewton. And my mini episode as well, where Pete talks about Ty West and I talk about Val Lewton. But please stay tuned. We're going to have another episode out, hopefully in the next 2 weeks. So we do bi-weekly mini episodes soon. In the meantime, we'll be blogging. Check us out on Twitter and Facebook. Please talk on our forums. Get some discussion going. We'd love to hear from you guys. And as always, then, I'm Matt Johnson. I remain in the shadows.
And I'm Peter Hansen.